It is a great honor and a privilege to introduce a very dear friend, patient, the most amazing lady, Sylvia Shyne. And Sylvia, your maiden name was Martin.
My maiden name was Martin, and I was born a very long time ago, in 1926.
Wow.
My parents came over from Russia round about 1904, I think. My father was in the Russian army and managed to get away, but he was fighting in the Russia-Japanese War, and he didn't like it. And my mother had already got to England. They'd arranged to meet up in England, and he got married in England. So where was I?
So, and you were born in London?
I was born in London in 1926, and the youngest of a family of 8.
Of 8? You had 8 siblings?
I had, yes, and it was boy, girl, all the way down.
And you were the youngest?
And I was the youngest. And you want to know about the...
So, and your father, your parents were very Orthodox?
Very Orthodox, yes.
And if we could just show, this is a picture of your parents.
I think this was when they were coming to my wedding.
Wow.
So that's my lovely mummy and daddy. And they were the sweetest and the most generous and just wonderful parents. I had a wonderful childhood, thank God. And I had all these brothers and sisters. And shall I put it down? And I think my eldest sister, who was 13 when I was born, she more or less brought me up. My mother was too busy. So anyway, so what was I?
Well, what did your father do? What profession?
It was very interesting, when he, in the Russian army, they took boys from a very young age away from school.
Yeah.
And he was a boy in the Russian army, and they taught him a trade. They taught him how to sew, and he made army uniforms while he was in the army, so that when eventually he got to England, he had a trade, and he became a master tailor, and thank God he did quite well and brought up a family, and we lived in the West End of London. I think when they arrived in England, everybody went to the East End, and they had a committee looking after all the people coming from Russia, and they were married through this organisation, and then they moved to the West End of London, which was a cut above, and they met a wonderful Rav. I think I've told you the story of how they met the Rav of the shul that they went to. And I think I told Reuven the story. You'll have to cut it out.
No, it's fine. You can tell.
They met this wonderful Rav. They were very young, and the Rav was young too, and befriended them. And they became very, very firm friends for many, many years, so that when the war broke out, it was this Rav who introduced them to Rav Kahneman.
Who was the from Ponevezh?
Yes, from Ponevezh. And anyway, what happened was, oh yes, But we lived in a very Jewish area in London called Cricklewood. The Goyim there were so many Jews there, the Goyim used to call it Cricklevich.
Oh.
And I went to Cheder there, my brothers and my sisters also, and it was a wonderful synagogue. And the rabbi of the synagogue, his name was Louis Rabinowitz. And he
later became chief rabbi in South Africa.
He became the chief rabbi of South Africa.
And the deputy mayor in
But
Jerusalem.
before that, he was a chaplain in the British Army. And he used to visit my brother Louis, who is quite elderly now, one who's 104. He was in touch with him because Louis was he was fighting against Rommel in Tunisia, and Rabbi Rabinowitz was the chaplain of the army, and he used to be in touch with Louis and let the family know how he was doing. At one time, Louis was we had a telegram to say he was missing, and we were very, very worried. And they found that his unit had got lost behind the enemy lines, and we didn't hear for quite a long time till they got back again safely. But I'm digressing.
No, it's fine. And Sylvia, when the war broke out, you remember when...
So Louis Rabinowitz came to my parents and said, I'm going to go to Germany. It was 1938. I'm going to Germany with Rabbi Schoenfeld and to see if we can help bring over the children. We know we can't bring over the adults, but we can maybe arrange some transport for the children. So he went with Rabbi Schoenfeld, and when he came back, he came to my parents and he said, I've just come back from Germany, and I was able to arrange for a lot of German children to come to Britain. £50 each we had to give for their transport, and he said, would you be prepared to take a child? So I remember very distinctly, we were sitting around the Shabbat table. It was Friday night. We were sitting around the table, the whole family. I was the youngest. I think my eldest brother was about 18.
And how old were you at this time?
I was about, 10, I think, 10 or 11. So my mother said, we've been asked to take a child, and we all said, of course, She said, what do you think? And we all said, of course. So she said, now think about it. Who's going to give up their room? Who's going to give up their bed? There were 8 of us in a 5-bedroom house, and we weren't wealthy. And she gave us she said, what will the child think when she hears you say Mummy and Daddy, and they don't know when they're going to see their parents or if they're ever going to see their parents again? And she listed all the problems that we would have. Anyway, we took 3. The first one, I've got a picture of her here. The first one was from Cologne. I remember she must have come from a quite wealthy family, because as long as she was with us, and she was with us a few months because her parents managed just at the outbreak of war to get to America, and they sent for her.
Wow.
But every Shabbat, while she was with us, we received flowers through Interflora, which they arranged to send from Cologne. Can you imagine?
Wow. And you have a picture of her?
I got 2 pictures of. She looks older than 13, but she was only 13.
And this is you with her in the picture?
Yes, I was. I think I was about 11 in these pictures.
And Sylvia, do you remember her name?
Her name was Laura. Of course, I remember her name. Oh my God!
No, but she came to your home.
She lived with us. Laura. I'm seeing if the name is on the back of the picture. Rosenthal.
Wow. Yeah, that is from 1939, winter 1939, with Laura Rosenthal from Cologne. Wow, and this is, I'll just do for... You can see she's very happy, she's smiling and... Wow.
Well, we made her happy. Oh, I'm so glad I'd written on the back, because I said to my doctor today...
No, you are amazing. Sylvia, I'll help you put it in.
Well, let's leave it like this for the moment.
And then she went with her, her parents sent for her to go to America.
That's right.
So they were the lucky ones that this was already 1938.
They must have paid a fortune to get out.
And this is in 1938.
That was the end of...
Or 39.
It was beginning of 1939. War had already broken out, and they managed to get out.
Thank God.
Now this is Hannah and me. You saw the picture I just showed you, didn't I?
Yeah.
And
Hannah
Alexander. No, but in between we had a boy. His name was Herschel Lorber. And I've got a little picture of him. I've lost it. Just a minute. Oh, it's this side.
So here's the picture.
This is, we're a bit older here. And that's Herschel.
Oh, that's Herschel.
Perhaps you can blow it up a bit,
Yeah, I'll
just
zoom in.
two of them, because the others are all refugees.
And who's next to Herschel?
Me.
That's you. Wow. And this was, let's see if you have at the this is in 1942.
Yeah.
And his name was Herschel.
Herschel was still with us until he went into the army.
Wow.
Into the British Army.
And this was in May 1942. And where did Herschel come from?
Herschel came from Berlin, I think. And he was with his mother. And it's very interesting. Did I tell you the story? Herschel was, yes, my brother and my sister-in-law went to a reunion, and this man stood up and said, I came to England with my mother, who was a widow, and we had nowhere to go, and a family called Martin took us in, and looked after us and sent him to school. And the mother, my mother, had a relative who was in the fashion industry, and his mother was a wonderful seamstress, so she found a job for her, and eventually Herschel went to live with his mother. But she used to come every day to check on him and see if his clothes were clean. Wow. And she would come into the kitchen. No, he would come into the kitchen when he came home from school and say, "What's for dinner, Mum?" He'd learned English by then.
Wow.
And that was Herschel, and he was very sweet. And I know I've got a younger picture of him somewhere, but I'll have to
That was in
look for it.
1942. That picture was from 1942.
It was 1942, so I was a bit older then. And now these pictures of Hannah as she was growing up.
So it was Hannah Alexander.
This is my brother Alec, who was in the Air Force. I don't know what's under here. Oh, that's new. Just a minute. So you've got a picture of Laura, and these are all pictures of Hannah with the family.
Oh, so we're going to take
This
one,
was
right?
with a,
Okay,
that's me and Hannah and a friend.
So if you can just, oh, this is a wonderful picture.
Just a minute.
So this is,
Me, friend and Hannah, with Terry, the next door neighbour's dog.
and you are in the middle.
No, I'm not in the middle, I'm here.
Are you, okay, and
And that's Hannah, and that's
and the friend is in the
That's
middle.
what's when we were all a little bit older. See, I showed you the first one.
The first one.
This was as she was growing up. This is Hannah, and this is me, and my two sisters.
Oh, these are your two sisters.
And this one is interesting because we had a bomb shelter at the bottom of our garden, and it was all surrounded with sandbags, and we're all sitting on the sandbags. And this is Hannah, and that's me, and these are all my aunts and uncles.
And this was a bit later.
Yes, this was this was. I'm trying to see. Has it got a date on it?
Oh, so you can read.
Yes, it hasn't got the date. It's got everybody who sitting on the sandbags at the entrance to our dugout bomb shelter.
And this is the picture.
That's the
What a
picture of
beautiful
my cousins, my aunt.
And where are you, Sylvia, in the picture?
In the picture, I'm here.
Okay.
But there's another one which is even clearer.
And in this picture?
He was a refugee. He became a very wealthy diamond merchant. That's Hannah, that's me, and my two sisters.
Your parents really, they made
They had
everybody feel so at home.
They had
you can
open
see.
house. My parents had open house because there were so many refugee children who came on the Kindertransport, and they didn't all find homes to go to. A lot of them were in hostels. There was a very big, large hostel in Willesden, and all these young girls and boys, they didn't have anywhere to go. I remember every Shabbat we had a house full of these boys and girls, and Sunday our front door was always open, not necessarily for the children, but for Nadovas. We had so many beggars in London, and they knew if they came to our house on a Sunday morning, they'd get a Nadova or a plate of soup, with a plate of soup and food.
And Sylvia, your parents weren't wealthy, they weren't?
Not at all. Not at all. My father was a tailor. And
so Sylvia, can I ask you, do you remember the day that Hannah came to your home?
She writes about it in...
so this is what she wrote about your parents.
Just a minute.
Oh, could you read?
Oh.
It would be wonderful if you could read.
Well, Hannah writes, I was born in Berlin on the 10th of March 1926. She's 6 months older than me. My father was an Orthodox rabbi. My mother, who was very Zionistic, gave us a love for Palestine. In those days it was Palestine.
Yeah.
I have a brother and sister, both, thank God, living in Israel with their families. We had a very good childhood, a warm Jewish atmosphere, and went to a Jewish religious school. When Hitler came to power in 1933, all this changed. The saddest day of my life was when my grandfather came to tell us that our synagogue had been destroyed. That was, of course, Kristallnacht. Both my brother and sister were already on Hachshara in Germany. My brother was taken to, just a moment, on the 9th of November. On the 9th of November, it was Kristallnacht, 9th of November 1938. Both my brother and sister were already on Hachshara in Germany. They were, Hachshara in Germany was preparing them to go. My brother was taken to Buchenwald and received a permit to leave Germany for England through the Bahad movement. My sister received a certificate to go to Israel on a youth aliyah program and only managed to get out at the last minute, August 39. I was then 13 years old. Children's aliyah was up to 12 years and youth aliyah from 14, so I was stuck in the middle. I wanted very much to go to Palestine as well, but all my protests did not help. So my father contacted Rabbi Rabinowitz of London, asking him to save my life by getting me over to England. He found a wonderful religious family for me, the Martin family. They already had 8 children of their own, but took me in as their 9th. I remember when I left Germany, my father took me to the railway station and blessed me. It was the 27th of June, 39. There were about 170 children on our transport. Shall I go on?
Please.
I remember mothers even bringing little babies. I was happy to get away from Germany, and on the journey, I cheered up all the children in my compartment. She was like that. I told them to be happy to be leaving Germany and that we would see our parents again. They would come later. Little did I know then that we would never see our dear parents again. She goes on how she arrived in Hamburg, where we boarded a very large American liner. When we were on board, we all started dancing the horror and singing Hebrew songs. It was wonderful, and we were spoiled with very good food. Everything was kosher. I had not eaten meat for a very long time, as shechita had been forbidden in Germany. We arrived in Dover on Friday the 30th of June, 1939. A train was waiting for us, and there was a package on all the seats for each child with goodies prepared by the Jewish cook of the American ship. We arrived in London where all the children waited with their little suitcases and name tags to be met by relatives or foster parents. My heart was beating hard as I was waiting for someone I did not know. Suddenly my name was called out, and a very nice lady who spoke German took me gently by the hand, brought me a glass of milk, and told me that my foster mother was unable to come, so she was asked to collect me. She had a beautiful car. We went through London, and it was like a fairy tale to me. When we arrived at my new home, I was warmly welcomed by an elderly lady and a younger one. I did not know then that the house would soon be full of young people. Mummy Martin welcomed me and told me that a letter from my parents had arrived and I should answer immediately. Only then did I feel homesick. As I wrote home, my tears were falling onto the letter, but in the evening at the Shabbat table, I already felt at home. I was really very lucky to have been fostered by such a good family, and I am in contact with them up until this day. And
wow, that's really, and this,
that was the day
her
that
story,
she arrived. Yeah.
does it go on?
She tells how she was evacuated, because I was evacuated.
You can, I'd love to hear
It
it.
said, then the war broke out and we had to be evacuated. I went to Boreham near Bedford, a small village with no Jewish people at all. A nice young couple took me in. Up to this day, I cannot remember how I explained to them in German. I knew very little English at that time, as I was Jewish and I could not eat their meat, but somehow they understood. Again, I was lucky. They were good people. Also, my headmaster at school was understanding. But with all that, my dreams were about Palestine. And when I was 14, I wanted to go on Hachshara. I went home to my family in London, that's my family, to tell them my intentions. Unfortunately, they did not approve of my idea. My parents wanted her to have an education and not to go on Hachshara. They wanted her to go to school and to learn. Unfortunately, they did not approve of my idea. A man from the committee, who apparently had a say in what I may or may not do, came to talk to me. He wanted to send me back to school because of my London family. I refused and fought for what I wanted to do. In the end, he gave in and he sent me to the David Eder farm, which was run by Habonim. He said that it was a religious youth aliyah group. And being only 14 years old, I believed him. When I wrote to my brother about it, thinking of surprising him, he had been on B'chad Hachshara for some time. He was annoyed and asked me to come to him. So I did, and he was in England on B'chad Hachshara, and stayed with him for a while. Because he is older than I am, he advised me to join a group my own age. That is when I went to Bromsgrove. It was also a Hachshara. where I spent 4.5 years, of which I have many pleasant memories and very sad ones. And in between, she was visiting us all the time.
And you remember her coming to visit?
Oh, yes, she was coming backwards and forwards, but I was evacuated too.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of 1946, I left England and went to Brussels in order to fulfill my dream and go on Aliyah Bet. In October 47, I was sent to Bachad Hakshara in Belgium, where I met my future husband, Eliezer. In April 48, we were married in Brussels at the house of very good friends, as neither Eliezer nor I had parents to make a wedding. A week later, we went on Aliyah Bet, but after having been inducted into the Israeli Haganah, we arrived in England. After 2 months of military training in France, on Shavuot, we reached our homeland at last. Now, as a mother and grandmother myself, I think a lot about how my parents must have felt when they sent me away to England, a girl of 13. I think of them with love and respect. But all the time we were in touch with her. And in fact, Herschel, the boy we adopted, was by that time in the army, in the British Army. And she doesn't say, Hannah, that they went on an illegal ship to Palestine. And
it was under the blockade.
They were sent to Cyprus. And who should be on guard outside the camp at Cyprus but Herschel? Wow. He was one of the British soldiers. Wow. And he knew her from our home, and he was in touch with her all the time. Eventually, she got out of the camp, and they went to live. They tried to get on a kibbutz, but no kibbutz would have her husband because he had a slight. What did he have? He had something wrong, and they didn't want to take a boy who was not perfect. I'm trying to think of what he suffered from. It'll come back to me in a minute. What's the word where you have fits?
Epilepsy.
Epilepsy. But he had a a slight case of epilepsy. But they still didn't want to take him in. And so eventually the only kibbutz that would take him in was the one in Sdot Yom. And it was in Caesarea. And it was not a from kibbutz. Now my parents went to visit Hannah many, many times in Israel, and when they were very disappointed that she was on a treifa kibbutz, but a couple of years later, Hannah wrote to my sister and said, "You can come and eat in our kibbutz now." Why? There were so many tourists who wanted to visit Caesarea. You know, it's the Roman amphitheater, and they all used to go to the kibbutz to eat. And so they turned the dining room into a kosher dining room. So Rennie, my sister, wouldn't accept it. She said she'll see for herself. And she went to visit Hannah again on the kibbutz. And she said, "I'm going into the kitchen to have a look." And she went to the kitchen, and she wanted to see the shoma. And the shoma was the son of one of the Rabbonim who always used to visit us in England, and she knew it was okay, and she even gave me the name. I've got it written down somewhere. And so after that, we never ate in the dining room anyway, but we used to visit her. And I've got pictures in here.
You know, Sylvia, here she writes. Can you read what she writes? It's the most beautiful, what she writes about your parents.
Well, Hannah Goldwyn is, who is, she's my adopted sister. She has written, "I would like to express all my love and gratitude to all the members of the Martin family from Cricklewood. They took me in, although they had a large family of their own, and accepted me with all their love as one of their children. There are not enough thank yous in this world to express all my gratitude."
It's so touching. And here's a picture, if you could show, of you and...
oh, yes.
It's a beautiful picture of you and Hannah.
Shall I take it out?
Okay. And she quotes here, "No longer a stranger in a strange land," from Exodus 2:22.
Yes.
Which your family made her no longer a stranger.
Just remember, there's the other one.
Over here.
And the big one, yes. Now, this is Hannah and me in right at the beginning of 1939.
That's when she just arrived. Wow.
Is it the right way up?
It's wonderful, yes.
And this was before my hair went white, a few years ago, a happy reunion, and she sent it to me. We took this picture on the kibbutz, and she sent it to me, and she writes, "To my beloved little," in quote, "sister Sylvia, when we met again in Claire's house with lots and lots of love, your Hannah." She made a visit to Claire, my daughter Claire, on the Moshav, when I'm trying to remember when she sent us this, 2017. That was when her husband died.
And it's a picture of you and...
And this is a picture, yes, it's also 17. She didn't send me this picture until she sent me this picture.
Okay.
She sent them both at the same time. But
and Sylvia,
this was in 2012.
Oh, that's from 2012. This is the picture from 2012. And this one here
and this
from...
one is 2017, when Hannah was sitting Shiva for her husband. And I went to Caesarea, to Sadot Yom, to visit her for the Shiva. And somebody in the room, it was full of people, somebody took a picture of us. And so she sent it to me with that.
For my darling sister Sylvia, lots and lots of love from Hannah Stotyam. Wow. And Sylvia, throughout the years, you remain very close.
She phoned me. I was just leaving the house this afternoon when she phoned me. And I said, "Hannah, I'll phone you when I get back." And I didn't get back to her now, so I'll phone her in the morning. And she's got great-grandchildren. She had a lovely husband. Just remember, I show you a picture of us. Where is it? Yeah. Actually, that's with my brother in Trafalgar Square. Don't take a picture of that. I want to show you a picture of...
And this story that she says appears in this book,
Yes.
called No Longer a Stranger. And here's a chapter from Hannah Goldwyn.
What am I looking for?
I think it's a picture of you and Hannah.
Oh, yes, this is a... Yes, this is a picture of... Shall I take it out?
Okay.
You don't have to take it out, but you can. That's Hannah. Look, she writes at the back.
To my darling Sylvia, with all my love, your Hannah, family forever. And then she mentions the family, and this is a picture. Wow, that's so special.
And this is a picture. She told you that her sister managed to get to Palestine. Now, my parents, in this picture, this is Hannah's sister. Her name was Tova. This is my brother Michael, my sister Rennie, Hannah's husband Luli, my mother and my father.
Wow, and this is in Israel.
In Israel.
Your parents must have got such nachas,
Yeah,
But you had the most incredible parents.
I did.
Sylvia, you had the most amazing parents. Sylvia, can I ask you a difficult question? After the war, when the war finished, and I think Hannah must have realized that her parents aren't coming back.
Her parents?
Yeah.
Oh, that was...
Do you remember when she
I
found
remember
out?
very, very well. The family wrote to try and find out what had happened to her parents, and and we got a telegram from the Red Cross to say that her parents had both perished.
I think they perished in Auschwitz.
In Auschwitz, I showed it to you.
And were you with Hannah at the time when she got the telegram? Or do you remember her reaction?
We had the telegram. She was already in, where was she?
And you had to break the news to her.
She wasn't with me. She wasn't next to me when I heard about the telegram. My parents were very caring of me. They liked to not let me know what was happening.
Protected.
And we had a house full of refugees coming in and out, families, parents and children visiting us all the time. And I only learned about the camps because I was listening to a conversation my mother was having with his family. Their name was Steinloff. I've got it. There was a mother and father, and they were very from, and a young boy who must have been about 11, and a little girl, and Mrs. Steinhoff was talking to my mother and telling her about the camps, that she had come from Germany with her family, and she knew what was happening, and people didn't know what was happening. And she told my mother, and my mother was so protective of me, she never told me what was going on. And but I learned through that. I always remember it was $50 one day, and there was a German mother and father with a 3-year-old little girl who couldn't speak any English, but he spoke Yiddish, And my father was making Havdalah, and he was holding up this candle, and it was all the different colours. And my father couldn't get over it. This little girl was standing on the chair, and she said to him, "So viel Farben, so many colours," she said in Yiddish, and he was so amused and so touched. I tell you, the house was always full of.
And did you take your parents? It must have been very difficult when your parents mentioned not to. They were so sensitive not to call mommy and daddy because I kind of didn't have a mommy and daddy with her. So what did you call your parents, or did you ever call them mommy and daddy?
Of course we did, but Hannah also called them mommy and daddy. Hannah called them mommy and daddy. Her parents were in Berlin. She didn't know. She called them mommy and daddy.
She called your parents mommy and daddy?
My parents. She called them mommy and daddy. I suppose she called her own parents in something in German, Mutti and Vater and Mutti. Mutti his mother, Vater his father. So, but if she said it in English, it wasn't the same as saying it in German.
And Sylvia, I'm just going to ask, but I know the answer is going to be no. But did any of you or your siblings ever feel any, I wouldn't even use the word resentment, but any...
Gosh, no.
Never?
Gosh, no. We looked after these kids. So you don't know my sisters and brothers. They were wonderful. And I had 4 sisters and 4 brothers. And my brother Louis took Hannah under his wing. He took... my sister Edith said to me, "He always used to take you everywhere. Now he takes Hannah everywhere." to show her. And there's this picture of her in. This was another brother's wedding, and she's wearing one of my dresses. My brother was in the army.
It's very beautiful. So you shared everything. You shared.
Yes.
And in whose room did she sleep?
We even shared boyfriends. There was this young man who he was from Germany, and he liked my sister. So he took her. He was taking her out, and he came to the house, and she said to him, "You must take Hannah out." And she was about 16, 17. And he did. And he was a colonel. He became a colonel in the Israeli army, the IDF. And when my parents came over to visit Hannah, they visited him too. They knew he was back in Israel, and he was married with a family.
And Sylvia, Hannah, whose room did she sleep in?
She said to me, You still don't mind that I slept in your room, my bed, and I doubled up with my parents. I slept in my parents' room
for many years.
Well, then my brother got married, so there was a free room, and then it worked out that. Eventually, and also she went away, and Herschel shared a room with my brother.
And you gladly gave up your bed?
Oh yes, I gave up my bed for Hannah. First I slept in my parents' room, and then I doubled up with my sister. We shared a bed. I remember. Interesting.
And Sylvia,
you reminded me. I'd forgotten all that.
Can I ask Sylvia, were there any other families, or was your family unique?
A lot of families took in German children, German refugees, but they couldn't have been as happy as we were because they all used to descend on us every weekend. So, oh look, and here's Hannah again. And this is, let me show you. This is Hannah. That's her husband, Lily. This is my mother. She was very tiny like me. This is my brother Michael. And that's my sister Rennie.
And this is the pictures at the bottom. Are these all of...
These are all of Hannah. I think my father made her this suit that she's wearing.
And just take out. And this is Hannah.
Oh, you're taking a picture. But this is a nice picture.
It's a beautiful picture.
They visited her on in Sedat.
So your family, you had most probably the most unique, incredible family of 8.
Yeah.
That wasn't wealthy. That was prepared to. It's just. I wish, when you hear stories of some of the Kindertransport, they didn't go to even their own families. They had relatives, and they went to total strangers.
And some of them were taken in as servants, as cleaners, and were very unhappy.
There were, unfortunately, you even have stories where some of the kinder were actually abused by the people that took them in. So when you see and you hear a story like yours with your parents, I think this is absolutely, it's unique. It's a unique part of the Kindertransport. And if only there were more families like the Martin family, like your parents.
I think my family were unique.
They were.
When I look back, I just took it for granted.
But not only your family, you and your sisters and your brothers.
Yeah.
That you...
Yeah, they all looked after these kids because they knew that they were suffering. They were... Hannah was very adaptable. And she must have been broken-hearted to be away from her parents. And when she wanted to go to Palestine, and my parents were very upset because they wanted her to continue her studies. Anyway, we talk about it we speak to each other every Friday before Shabbos. But she phoned me today because it's Louis' birthday. Louis, where's Louis? I showed you a picture of her with Louis.
Yeah.
That's in Trafalgar Square. He's not in uniform, but he's, you can see the other people in the picture are in uniform. He was wearing his civvy suit.
That is amazing.
When he came on leave, he would put on his civilian attire.
And this is such a beautiful picture of your parents.
It's lovely, isn't it?
You had very, very special parents.
I told you this, we were, the whole family were rowing on the Serpentine in London, and my sister took a picture of me with this young man who became a very wealthy diamond merchant. You saw that one?
Yeah, that's a beautiful picture. Okay, and Sylvia, you mentioned with that Rabbi Schoenfeld, that he was very instrumental also
I never met him.
You never met him, but did you hear his name growing up?
Oh, yes. Once he became involved with the Kindertransport, he also founded a school, the Hasmonean. I think he founded the Hasmonean. It's still going strong. It's a wonderful boys' school and a girls' school, separated. And And he was the founder of the Hasmonean school.
And he worked together with Rabbi Lou Rabinowitz.
Not with the school, I think by that time.
With the kinder in
yes,
bringing
for
over
the
the kinder.
Kindertransport, yes.
Did Rabbi Rabinowitz ever come to your home?
Who?
Rabbi Rabinowitz.
Oh, you bet he did. Of course he did. First of all, he was in charge of the Cheder, and he just lived a few houses away from where we lived. And we were very close. He was very close to my family. And even when he came to England after he retired from being the chief rabbi.
He was the chief rabbi. He came to South Africa
yes,
in 1948.
When he retired, he came back
47, 48, he came to South Africa and he was the chief rabbi. And he was a dynamic chief rabbi. Any South African, you mentioned the name Lou Rabinowitz, he made such an impact on the community.
He was very
dynamic.
Yes. I remember when I was a little girl and I was in the gallery in Shul and he was preaching, and he used to tell the congregation off, and he told, I remember the words he said, I was only a kid, I remember the words he said about the women coming to the synagogue with their carmined lipstick. He didn't approve, but I just remember I went home and I said to my sister, "What are carmine lips?" And he didn't approve, and he was always telling them off.
But he became, afterwards he became the deputy mayor of Jerusalem.
Yes.
He made Aliyah and he was living here.
And he became the rabbi of the Yeshurun.
Of Yeshurun Shul in
he was the Yeshurun Shul.
in King George Street in downtown Jerusalem. But he had an incredible impact on the South African Jewish community.
He had two daughters, Denise and Naomi. Denise was nice, Naomi was horrid.
But you remember him coming to your home?
Very often.
And he was close with Hannah?
Not really, no. I remember him from before Hannah's time, because once Hannah came, the war broke out and he became a chaplain in the army. And after the war, he came back again to visit us and the family. But I just remember him before the war, when he was in charge of the Cheder and he gave sermons in the shul. And I remember my mother saying to him when Hannah came, and she was very pale and pinched looking, and my mother said to him, "Look, she's not well." He pinched my sister Rennie's cheek. "After a few weeks with you, she'll look like this."
Wow. Sylvia, what a story. What an incredible story. So there are many books written on the Kindertransport, like And the Policeman Smiled, and I Came Alone. But there are many books. But I don't think there's one story in all the stories that I've heard, like the story what your parents did and what you and your siblings did. Because that really is, you and your parents were like malachim, like angels. You not only gave up your home, your bed, but you made whoever came into your home feel as part of your family.
Absolutely. I'll never forget all the Orama mentioned who used to come to
the poor people.
Poor people who used to come on a Sunday morning, and the door was wide open. They just walk in and come into the kitchen. My mother would have a huge pot of soup, and they all had refreshments, and they never went away empty-handed. how, not very much, but just something, you know.
And Sylvia, looking back on this.
Look, here's Hannah again, with my mother and father.
Oh, so this I want to take out because it's.
Are there two in there?
Yeah, I think there's three.
Oh, let's see.
Oh, that's a.
Oh,
So
this is a copy.
I think it's a copy. Oh. Sylvia, if you could read on the back. So here's your parents. This is that's a much younger picture than from the.
Mommy, Daddy, Sophie, Hannah, Rennie, and me.
Wow, this is a beautiful picture. You can see such a happy family. Everybody's smiling.
Yes, yeah.
In a lot of the pictures that you see of the Kindertransport, you see the faces of the little children and they're not smiling.
Well,
and it's understandable, but your family,
this was,
in all the pictures, they're all smiling.
Well, this
That's
was
a testament to.
This was afterwards.
Sure.
You couldn't expect to see them smiling on me.
I know, but even pictures after they'd been in England for a while, they're not. You can see they're not smiling and they're not happy.
Really? Have you seen them?
But in all the pictures from your family, you can see they're all smiling. They say a picture tells 1,000 words, but even more so, it just. Sylvia,
she was also a refugee child. This one. What was her name? It's on the back. Oh, I couldn't have known her name. It's a friend.
So Sylvia, looking back on this period, I mean, it couldn't have been easy during the war with the Blitz and being evacuated. But what your parents did, how do you feel about your parents looking back? Or would you have done anything different? Or looking at your parents, you must have...
I remember crying when I was evacuated. I didn't want to go, didn't want to leave home. And I didn't enjoy being evacuated. We were evacuated to a place called it'll come back to me. It was very, very funny what I just did. It went out of my head. My granddaughter got married 2 or 3 weeks ago to a young man whose family live in Euroham, and his grandmother, the cousin's grandmother, decided she would give a Dvar Torah at dinner on Friday night, and because we went to the Khatan, Shabbat Khatan, for the weekend, and she decided she'd give her Dvar Torah. So she's halfway through it, and she's an elderly lady, and she suddenly stopped, and she said, "I've forgotten." She said, "Carry on to the next course, and it'll come back to me." And it did. And she continued her Dvar Torah, which I didn't understand because it was all in Ivrit, and my Ivrit's hopeless. But so when I was trying to tell you where I was evacuated to, Northampton, came back,
sure.
to Northampton, which was an industrial town. So why we were evacuated there, I don't know. But I came back to London just in time for all the bombs.
And you remember?
Oh, of course I remember. I was 13 by that time. So I remember my brother was in Normandy. He In fact, when on his 100th birthday, apart from the letter from the Queen, he was asked to come to the French embassy, and he was presented with a medal of the. He was made a member of the Legion d'Honneur.
Wow.
And he said to me, "It's a beautiful medal." He said, "It's blue and white and gold, and it matches my pajamas." A terrific sense of humour. I had a letter from the Queen. Do you want to know about that? Well, this granddaughter who's on the wall here, she was getting. Shall I show it to you?
Okay. No, don't get up. I'll zoom in.
This was when she graduated from Basalia as an architect.
That's such a beautiful picture.
So she was visiting me one day with her fiancé, and when she wasn't in the room, he said to me, "Could I ask a special favour of you?" No, he said, I left a note under the cushion of the armchair. So I looked at the note, and he said, "I know that the Queen in England sometimes sends greetings on special occasions. Do you think that you could ask her to send a greeting for, I want to give Abigail a surprise, for our wedding, for our marriage?" So I thought, it didn't occur to me that if I did that I would ever get a reply. So I said, well, I'll give it a try. So I wrote to Her Majesty the Queen. I said, I'll show you the letter I wrote. I've got it here. I don't know if I got the letter I wrote, but I got her reply. One day I looked in my letterbox and I found this.
Oh, so this is...
Look at the crest on the back.
Shyne.
On the back.
Oh, and this is from the emblem of the Buckingham Palace.
Buckingham Palace. And it was so funny when I wrote the letter.
Buckingham Palace, oh, if you could read the letter, this is amazing.
It says, "Dear Mrs. Martin Shyne," I put my name Martin. And it's got the
Buckingham Palace
crest. "The Queen wishes me to thank you for your letter, with which you enclosed an invitation to the wedding of your granddaughter, Abigail, to her fiancé, Martin, in January, and you asked Her Majesty to send a personal message. As I am sure you will understand, the Queen receives many similar requests, and has therefore made a strict rule only to send congratulations to her subjects when they reach their 60th wedding anniversary or 100th birthday. Nevertheless, Her Majesty was touched to know of Abigail's support for the royal family and the pride she has for her uncles who served in the RAF, the Royal Artillery, and the King's Royal Rifles during World War II. I hope Abigail and Martin enjoyed their special day, and I am to thank you once again for your thoughtfulness in writing as you did."
That is so beautiful.
Isn't it?
Wow. Lady in writing, wow.
No, I haven't, I don't know if I ought to
I think you should frame it. I think it's wonderful.
Oh, I gave a copy of it to
But this is the original.
Abigail, and she's framed the copy. I'm not giving her this yet. It's too precious. But what did I write to her? I wrote that Abigail is a great Anglophile because I brought her up to admire the royal family and told her all these stories about them. And then I went on to say that she's very proud of her uncles who were one was in the Air Force and one, etc., said what it says here. So that's why I got a nice reply. So she says she only sends on the 60th wedding anniversary and the 100th birthday. Well, I know my brother my father got a telegram on his 100th birthday. But now she doesn't send telegrams anymore, she sends greetings. So when my brother had his 100th birthday, the one who is now a little bit older, they had a party for him in his house. And my niece tells me that she went to the party, and when she got to the front door to ring the bell, there was this huge tall man standing there in a uniform, and she said he had a red thing on his hat, a cap and epaulets. I'll show you a picture. And she said to him, "Are you for real?" And he said, "Madam, I am the Queen's emissary." And he had come to bring a birthday card to Louis and to my brother Louis. He brought it himself. And
on his 100th birthday.
And he stayed for the party, and he read out a speech. But I just must show you this picture. I'll bring it to you. Just on the door here because I don't have any room for it.
And these are the stories of the...
Yeah.
Sylvia, this is incredible.
This is what...
so you're right. I'm going to just put it in for our listeners. I'm so pleased to know that you are celebrating your 100th birthday on the 20th of October 2014. I send my congratulations and best wishes to you on such a special occasion. And there's a signature of Elizabeth, Mr. Lewis Martin, and the Queen's representative, Deputy Lennon.
Here he is with my brother and his wife.
That is so special.
And here's everybody's at the party.
Wow.
And
that is so incredibly special.
Isn't it?
But you know, Sylvia, I must just mention what is more special is that your family, you have really the most remarkable family. You really do. I think it's just the most unique, remarkable family, and your story is, if only there were more families like your family. Because
I'm sure there are. But this is, I think it's so lovely that he read out the, first of all, this is a photo of what was written. It was a beautiful card.
It's very beautiful.
And then the way he's bending over and talking to them.
It's really wonderful. Wow. And your family stayed very close through the years.
Oh, but being the youngest, it's just me and my brother who's... actually, it's his birthday on the 28th of October.
Wow.
And Hannah, who I said phoned me today, just as I was going out, she said, "I've just been talking to Louis and Edna." It's very funny. She said she was very much in love with him. She said, you know, it's very lucky that I didn't marry Louis. She said, I could never have looked after him the way Edna does.
Wow.
I had to laugh.
So, Sylvia, I want to ask you, I mean, you've heard this, and I really want to thank you so much for sharing such special memories.
And I think it's terrible that I haven't given you anything to eat or even.
Nonsense. Sylvia, can I just ask you, looking back, what message would you give? I mean, your parents, the example, I
just wish that I could emulate my parents. I could never.
No, I think
They
you
had
have.
such a wonderful neshama, both of them, and they passed it on to their children as best they could, and now to their great grandchildren. You know, Gabby's children are just amazing.
Well,
They're amazing children.
you've been blessed because I know Gabby and I know your grandchildren, and
So you do,
you really have the most beautiful family, and your parents are smiling from above. And I'm
hope
getting
they
a
are.
lot of nachas from you, and
I hope that they are in Gan Eden and they are watching us and guiding us. I ask every night when I say the Shema, and I ask my parents to give me seichel, to give me wisdom, so that I can be as much as I can like them.
well, I've told many people, Sylvia, you are royalty. You really are, and you come from, your parents are, like you mentioned, emulate. They are people, your parents, that everybody should try and emulate, because their good deeds, having such a large family, not having so much money, opening up their homes, not only opening up their homes,
Life was not easy for them.
and they did it with an open heart, and you can see how happy and how you kept the connections. They are an example that the whole of mankind could emulate, really. And I think your story and the story of your parents is absolutely unique, and I'm so glad that I've been given the opportunity to hear it firsthand.
You're very sweet.
And I really, from the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate it, and I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. And it's a story that should be told, and your parents, their recognition is in their actions and in the people that they helped and the families that they saved worlds. They really did.
I tell you, there was one elderly lady, she was a spinster, and she was quite on her own, and I remember she came, she was in the house every single day. She was in our house. Her name was Marcia Itzkovitz, and we were a little bit in awe of her because she was very brilliant. I don't know what she had been when before she came to England, but she was very clever. And she told me what to name my children and all that sort of thing. She was very fragile, and after the war she received reparations, and it must have been quite a good sum, because she said to my brother, she was very sick, she was very ill. My brother was visiting her, and she said to him, I have all this money, who shall I give it to? My brother Michael, was an angel, he said, we have some friends whose son is just studying to be a lawyer, and they can't afford to send him to, and she left the money to him in her will, and he became a lawyer in Tel Aviv, and when we were in Israel he became our lawyer. And because of my brother telling her to educate this young man, my parents knew his parents, and knew that they weren't very well off. They were very bright and quite a name in the community, and that's what happened. I'll give you his name one day, but not now.
Well, Sylvia, I just really want to thank you so much, and you must have...
See, that's just one of the people who my parents looked after, and so that from her somebody else was Mazeldik.
Yeah. Well, you've been blessed, and you should continue to be blessed with just all of Hashem's blessings, and just mazel and good health. And we say Ad Mevestrim plus VAT plus Mam.
And I say Kamatem.
In good health, and really, Sylvia, you can be so proud. You have a unique family, and you are unique, and you really are.
I don't know about that, but
thank you so much, Sylvia.
Thank you very much for all the lovely things you're saying, and I hope that I deserve them.
Of course you do.